Welcome back to the Operator Lab, where we sit down with forward-thinking leaders and entrepreneurs to talk about what it actually takes to build and run a successful company. I'm your host, Ethan Seib, and with me today, we have Chris Lipper. Chris is an entrepreneur, business coach, and the founder of On the Bus, a coaching mastermind community that has been helping small business owners grow, scale, and build something worth owning for over 16 years. Chris, really glad to have you today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I have to say, after our conversation before this, I knew this was going to be a good one. You've got a perspective on entrepreneurship that I don't think a lot of people talk about, honestly. So really excited to dive into it here. Chris, just start at the beginning here. You've had a pretty unconventional path to where you are now. Give us the quick version. How did you end up becoming a business coach, and what was the journey that got you here?
I don't know if there's a conventional way of doing it. It's just the way it happened for me. I am not a good employee. I am somebody who comes up with ideas. I have energy, I have passion, and I want to go for it. And the last thing I want to do is ask permission and wait for a series of maybes and no's or yeses. And it just doesn't work for me. If there's an idea on the table, let's just try it and see what happens. In the corporate world, that doesn't work. So I started my own businesses. And I started with repping companies in a couple of industry, one in the marketing industry, one in the sports industry. I started On the Bus in 2010. In between, I was inventing. I was a professional inventor for 15 years and had a coach. Kind of dreaded having a coach because he gotten in the way of where I was trying to go and say things like, well, I don't know if that'll work, or no, you shouldn't do that, or it's never been done. And it's like, okay, get out of the way. Let's just take a shot. But he also had mastermind groups, and I love those. I love being around entrepreneurs. So I think that answered the question. Oh, and so how I got here, he died. And I ended up buying the franchise from the estate, and I didn't get along all the time with the franchisor because, again, it was another boss, and so it just wasn't going to work. But great organization, great people, and learned a lot.
You said you were a professional inventor for 15 years. I have to ask, what does that actually look like? What were you inventing?
So I had a job, and I got a resentment. It was in the apparel industry, and left the company and had an idea for what's known as a gift with purchase. In the apparel industry, sometimes you get I heard a story yesterday, somebody bought a bathing suit for their kid because it came with a set of goggles. Well, my gift with purchase were removable tattoos. And so I made a hang tag that incorporated removable tattoos and patented it. We got a utility patent. Back then, it took a little over a year to get. Now patents take about 5 years to get, and it's really hurting inventors, I think. But that was the first one, and I don't know any overnight successes. It took a couple of years to get that going, but when it went well. Keds alone were ordering over 100 million of these things a year, and we had Skechers and Fila, and a number of Converse was a big one for us. And then a lot of the apparel companies, it was good. It was popular. And that spun off to other inventions. In the end, we were doing medicated tattoos that delivered drugs and vitamins, and the image on the tattoo would change as the drug was delivered. And there's a whole story there. I wrote a book on it.
And then On the Bus, you started this in 2008, which was a rough time to start anything. What was the insight that made you think this was the right move?
Entrepreneurs needed the help. Originally, we were assisting entrepreneurs networking and creating connections and starting the sales process for them. And then we evolved into sales training, into coaching, into masterminds. Masterminds are my favorite way to coach entrepreneurs. To be honest, I don't think that the one-to-one model for coaching works well for entrepreneurs. Again, the coach is in the way. But masterminds are special. There's an energy there that the owners tap into. There's a community, a camaraderie. It's a place where entrepreneurs can feel accountable where they don't anywhere else.
You have a pretty strong take on the coaching industry. You said that the one-to-one coaching for entrepreneurs often doesn't actually work, that they are getting in the way. Pretty bold statement for someone in the coaching business, but are you able to just elaborate a little bit on that compared to the mastermind that you are suggesting?
Well, and I'm not going to make a lot of friends saying this, but there's a lot of coaches that shouldn't be coaches, right? They were corporate guys who lost their jobs and hung their shingles as coaches. Maybe they're good leadership coaches, but they've never been an entrepreneur. So I don't know why they think they should coach entrepreneurs. And what they tend to do is lower prices. So now it becomes a race to the bottom with prices, and it's kind of hurting our industry more than helping. But masterminds, you put entrepreneurs in a room with other entrepreneurs, there's an energy, first of all, but there's the feeling of we've been there and done that, and we've made the mistakes for you. And we can share with you our experience on the mistakes and where the rabbit holes are so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And it's a lot better to learn from other people's mistakes than having to make them yourself.
That distinction between the employee mindset and the entrepreneur mindset. You said entrepreneur's favorite day is Monday. What does that actually look like in practice when you're running groups, or
Yeah,
what's
I
the
think the
difference?
comment that I made that the difference between employees and entrepreneurs is employees' favorite day of the week is Friday because the weekend's here. And entrepreneurs' favorite day of the week is Monday because we can't wait to get back at it. A lot of times we don't even know what day it is. It doesn't matter. I work Christmas morning. I wrote, it's what we do. It's our happy place is being productive.
So, what does that actually look like in practice when you're running groups, or what do you think is the difference in how those two people show up to their work?
Typically, entrepreneurs are the first one in. They turn on the lights and they shut off the lights. So they're the first in and last to leave. Um, that's one of the things we work on with our owners is to try to achieve work-life balance. We don't want that to be the case. We want our owners to delegate better, have systems in place where they're managing systems versus people and give themselves some work-life balance. We want them to go to their kids' soccer games or baseball games. We want them to do the things that are important to them because life passes you by.
You touched on it a bit. I think passion for the work is a a big driver for that.
Yeah, many times for entrepreneurs, the business is as important, if not more, I hate to say it, than their kids. It's like another kid and gets shared energy with the kids, unfortunately.
There's also just the simple fact that if an entrepreneur is putting that much work into it, they have goals for their personal life, not just for them, but also their family. So, equally as important if they want that for their kids, for that, the lifestyle that they're building, it absolutely would be a pretty serious priority for them. So tell me about the on the bus model. You showed me a little bit of it yesterday, and we will get into it soon. What does it actually look like? How do the groups work, and what keeps people coming back for 8 years on average?
Yeah, so our cancellation policy is 30 days. Our average stay is over 8 years. We had one guy with us from the beginning, 18 years. So they stay and we're not cheap. So, it works for them. What they're signing up for is a community. I am not the guru. I don't want to be the guru we are not a guru based organization. We are a community for small business owners. And what that entails is they do get one-to-one coaching with their facilitator. Typically, it's me because I'm running most of the groups these days. But what we're doing is preparing them for their bus meeting. So they come with a challenge. That they come knowing what they're going to present and they're prepared. We have them fill out a monthly bus pass. And this is a bus pass that lists their KPIs that every other coach does. And that's fine. It's important to know, profit and revenue and receivables, certainly, and some other things that can be indicators. But what we're really tracking are behaviors. So for the small business owner, we want them out there networking. And the purpose of networking is having one-to-ones. The purpose of the one-to-ones is asking for referrals. And then it's how many of those meetings are they getting? And what's the success ratio or kill ratio, as I like to call it, on those meetings? And we track all of that. And then we offer sales training 3 times a month, where if they need a little help with networking, we have a class called Networking versus Not Working. If they need help on how to ask for referrals, we have a class on that. Or the big one is what to do with the meeting that you've gotten from a referral. How is that different than the meeting where you're asking for the referral? Those are two very different kinds of meetings. So we have sales training on that. We have our own networking groups where our owners get to practice. where it's okay to say, time out, let me start over. I didn't like how that sounded or how that felt. Let me try it again. Perfectly fine at our groups. It's why we started them. And we've been doing those for a long time. We have 2 a week now, one in the metaverse on Mondays, one on Zoom on Thursday. We're completely virtual, by the way. And then the other part of our community that some partake in and some don't is our metaverse platform. And that's where we have conferences and trade shows. And that's what all this is behind me. This is for our show coming up on Tuesday. So
Mm,
it's a group, but the crowning jewel of the whole thing are the mastermind groups. That's where the magic
okay.
happens.
Very nice. Yeah, you touched on the metaverse. We will get into that very
Fun.
shortly here. Very excited to show everyone. So no contracts, 30-day cancellation, and your average members stay over 8 years. It says more a lot about the program than any marketing could. You talked a lot about a lot of what is offered in the bus programs here. What do you think is actually keeping people that long? What's the real reason?
Their success is embarrassing. We had one woman join us 9 years ago, and I remember the day. It was a Thursday. We met in my office in New Jersey. She was a Mary Kay rep. She had all these wonderful ideas for businesses, and back then we were charging $750 a month. And when she said how much, I said $750 a month, and she said, "I can't afford that." And I said to her, I said, "You can't afford not to do it. You have all these wonderful ideas. 10 years from now, you'll be kicking yourself for not taking a shot." And, we shook hands and parted ways. And that Monday, she called me up and she borrowed the money for 3 months worth. And she let me know that. And she's like, let's get busy. So here we are 9 years later, and she has 14 businesses. She's still a solopreneur, and she profits on a slow month, $150,000, $160,000 profit. On a good month, $250,000 as a solopreneur. 9 years ago, she couldn't afford to join. So those are one of the success stories. We have many.
Absolutely. And the evidence speaks for itself. You mentioned that you separate solo operators from companies with employees and the two shall never meet. Why is that such a hard line for you?
It's a different mindset. The solopreneurs have their own bus where they go to. That's bus 102. And, they have different types of challenges. They may have subcontractors, they may have virtual assistants, they may have sort of employees, but they don't have to deal with employee issues. On Bus 101, these are companies doing between 1 million and 10 million in revenue, and they tend to have employees. And they tend to either be growing or, in one situation, trying to get smaller. So it's just a different kind of thinking for the owners, and one doesn't totally get the other. The solopreneur is always going to be a solopreneur, typically in our groups, and wants to be a solopreneur. And sometimes they make more money, and there's nothing wrong with it. But the one with employees, typically we help them get out of the business eventually and exit at some point. The solopreneur may have a harder time exiting.
Chris, I want to ask you something you suggested before we started because I thought it was really genuinely interesting. Uh, who do you want to work with? And equally important, who do you not want to work with?
I want to work with founding entrepreneurs. I want to work with startups to about 10 million in revenue. At about 10 million, there's a shift to playing defense versus offense and just trying not to blow it kind of thing. It's a lot more fun working with the entrepreneur building and growing. I enjoy new situations where owners need a place to go and say, I don't know what to do here. So it could be a widow who's just inherited a business. It could be a next generation where it's a transition, but we have to get the previous generation out. So that's always the tricky part because they don't want to leave because they think they're helping their kids run the business, but they're not. They're in the way. And then we have a lame duck owner kind, and that's a fine line. We had one of those a year ago, and I think they're still struggling with that situation. Who I don't want to work with, there aren't a lot. Well, I don't enjoy blowhards. We don't want people coming to our meetings telling us how smart they are or reporting on what they've done. That's not why you're there. You come to our meetings to present a challenge and say, this is what I'm stuck with. What do I do? What have you guys done in this situation? I don't love the food industry, the restaurants, unless they want to franchise. And the only reason is they work way too hard and don't make enough, typically, because they need to be there around the clock. And I don't think that's healthy, but they love what they do. And, I'm grateful for them, but they're just not great members. Accountants aren't great either because they want to take off April and May, and because they're all stressed out from their busy season. Bookkeepers are great, but accountants typically you can't find them in the summer.
Sounds like you have a bone to pick with a couple of industries. Not on a serious note. My background is in the food industries, not as an operator, and more just as a service. So I am curious, who have you actually had the most success with out of these people? I feel like the answer might surprise people.
If I had to pick, probably veterans. They're very coachable. They tend to be young enough. They're retired from the military. They have pension money, so they've got some gas in the tank, and they're ready to do their own thing. Sometimes they become franchisees, but they're not happy there. They really want to be the franchisor or the owner operator and take the reins, but they like having guardrails and they like being pushed and they like having an SOP of sorts. So they're good members for us.
Yeah, the question before that, I personally really liked what you had to say about certain groups that normally wouldn't get brought up in these conversations. You just mentioned veterans. You mentioned widows. I think that's a huge one. A lot of people, when they're talking about conferences or just the business mindset, are often thinking of the people that want to be there, maybe have thought about this their whole life, or they've been around this and in a way know what they're doing. But like you said, maybe it's a veteran that has a change of lifestyle, now wants to start something, or maybe it is that widow that perhaps was involved a little bit or maybe not much at all, has now inherited the business and just needs that guidance on how to be successful when that wasn't maybe their original plan. So just giving the special shout outs to those groups, I think, is really cool.
Yeah, and shout out for having the guts to joining a group where they can go and be vulnerable and say, I don't know what to do in this situation. But they've been some of our best owners.
You mentioned a member who had to borrow money to join and now profits over $150,000 a month as a solo with 14 companies. What was it about her situation that made you say yes when others might have said no?
It was her passion and her drive. I'm a New Yorker. She's a New Yorker. There's something about us that just jives, but it's hard to say no to her. And I think that's part of her success. There's something genuine and real, and there's not a lot of fluff. We just roll up our sleeves and get down to it. And she does the work. And she's not someone who's going to BS you with all the things they're going to do. She's really going to do it. And we get a little bit of that. We get a little bit of, "Oh, yeah, I'll do that," when they know they won't, and we have to call them on it.
What's the thing that most entrepreneurs get wrong? The mistake you see over and over that you spend your time helping people undo?
Great question. So we either can fix this in the beginning or we can fix it 10 years down the road. But what happens with a lot of owners is they don't have a real vision. Their vision goes about 2 weeks, maybe 2 months, maybe 2 years, but they're not thinking towards the exit. And if we can build something towards the exit and work it backwards, it's a lot better way to do it because we can make a lot of mistakes today that can affect us in the end. I'll get a quick example is not trademarking your name. If you're going to sell this business someday and exit the business, you got to have some IP. You got to protect it somehow. There has to be something they can buy or license or franchise or whatever it is. And if we're not doing the basics of just putting a TM on our name, that's a mistake.
Chris, I want to give you the opportunity here to pull up that metaverse that you were showing us. We started that conversation yesterday. I was genuinely surprised by what you were showing me. So you've built a full metaverse platform for virtual conferences and trade shows that you can also talk about the background that you have here for yourself. Just tell people, what that actually is, because I think a lot of people, they hear metaverse and immediately think of something different.
But just a quick backstory on how we got here. One of our members said, "Trade shows suck. I'm never doing another one." And I said, "Trade shows don't suck. You suck at doing them. And I'll prove it to you. And we're going to have a trade show." And we had a trade show. And we used our sales training to teach them how to get more out of trade shows. And we did it 7 or 8 times live when I was living in New Jersey. When the pandemic went down, we had to figure out a way of doing it virtually. And I was fortunate to have the right people in my life at that time. And we started on Zoom, and then we built to another platform. At one time, we had an entire city, and we broke the metaverse. And I should say the metaverse has nothing to do with Facebook. It has nothing to do with Meta. You don't need goggles. I will show you right now what our metaverse looks like. And we're on our 7th or 8th, maybe 5th or 6th platform. But this is what Tuesday's show will look like. By 4 tech support people And if somebody needs help, we can send them up to a Zoom room with another tech support person. We have AI bots here if you have questions as to who's on the floor and what they do and what they're presenting on. And this is our floor. We assume most traffic goes this way, but they go wherever they want. And they have screens. You can see I still have a couple of booths to set up. This one, she's in the film industry, so we give her moving parts. Just trying to turn this one on across the room. I'll do it when we get closer. But most of these people are members and they get free booths. That's part of membership. Gray Sky Films, they were with us 15 years ago and they just came back after a 5-year hiatus or so. This is a wonderful solar company. There's all kinds of different businesses here. This guy Daniel's amazing. He comes up with these products that you wouldn't believe, like interactive videos and holographic business cards. Here's a booth we still have to put up by Tuesday. We're waiting on graphics. Um, Delaney Law is a IP attorney, and she's wonderful. Jackie's been with us for probably 10 years. Up here we have presentations, and you can see we have 3 full presentation rooms. All the exhibitors have the right to present. But it's easy to walk around, it's easy to move. Um, the platform's now pretty stable. We've gone through some lumps and we've kind of grown together. And don't give me too much credit. I didn't build this. I rent the room kind of thing and then build what's in the room. But I didn't create the metaverse or anything close to that. But this is our 30th show for small business owners. So we're very much a leader in this space. You can share the link. It's right here, actually. And people can come, no charge. If you're a small business owner, you can come no charge on Tuesday, 2 to 5 Eastern. So that's June 16th. And we do these 4 times a year.
I do just have a quick question about inside the metaverse. I saw that you can go upstairs and there is presentation rooms. So then on the bottom floor, those are your members, or I do believe you said the businesses can pay for a booth. So the booths themselves, I saw that there was some lines on the floor, some blue lines. So you get a little space, you get a little booth, and that is for the company to put up their advertisement or show whatever they would want.
So what those blue lines are speaking zones. So you go in there and you have a private conversation. So you can hear the noise, I assume, and you see how it turned from blue to green. That means you're in somebody's booth. And then you can go out and somebody can say, hey, how are you? What do you do? Come on into my booth. And we'll walk into the booth. And then it's a private conversation.
So typically there would be, you have avatars that you would make custom to yourself. Lots of people walking around here, and then
That's me now.
so you could probably hear a lot of people in the room, but when you step into these talking boxes, you're more talking with the business owner or whoever is set to be in that box to, kind of talk about what they're doing.
Correct. The floor gets very loud. You get 100 people on there having conversations from everything from, hi, how are you? Where are you? What do you do? To how about this weather? Or how about those Knicks? Or, whatever it might be. So it can get very loud. We do ask that everybody uses Chrome so that all speaking volumes are at the same level. If we have people with different, Safari and Firefox and other things, then we're not at the same level.
Yeah, I'm such a big fan of what you showed me here. You told a story about how someone said these conferences, not the virtual ones, but the ones that you have to go to, they often just suck. I'm also thinking that the people that actually like going to those things spend their time doing that. There's a lot of travel involved, lots of money involved, and a lot of people probably do find the whole experience to be fun. You're networking, all that. But at the end of the day, like we just mentioned, it can be expensive. You're traveling, so it takes away from the actual work. Here you can be at home, you can be just doing the exact same thing, and in a way it's like playing a video game. Spend an hour or two in this space, and I just think that what you guys are doing is just such a new perspective to advertisements. You look at social media, how people are doing ads on there. great way to reach people, but something like this just it speaks to me. It looks fun to actually just want to be a part of and like to say that you're doing this. Very cool what you guys have built.
Thanks. And we have events there other times. So the booths stay up. That's why you see the QR code. So there's people on the floor every day. And we have an event there on Mondays where people are down on the floor. It's open 24/7. You can't break anything. Nobody has permission to do anything like that. But so there's QR codes. You can set appointments with any of these people without going to the show. And my favorite thing to hear is when somebody comes in and I greet them, say, "Hey, I'm so glad you came." And they'll say, "I only can stay for 10 minutes." I'm like, "No problem, stay for 10 minutes." 2 hours later, they're still there. And they've brought all their appointments with them, like, "You got to check this out." And so that's fun.
So outside of the four virtual conferences that you guys have, this space is open for, people to just come and go as they please?
Yep.
Okay, and inside you won't have a full conference room, but businesses are there. You can find the odd person that is online, and you can come and speak with them.
Yep. You
Very
can.
cool.
We,
Okay.
we we had a Shark Tank on there last year. We're trying to find ways of using the space because I pay rent, right? I pay for the space, but I'm trying to keep it business and corporate.
What you're building there is quite unique, very unique.
We had a city called Lipperville. And my email address was themayor@lipperville.com. And I want to bring Lipperville back where we had a golf course, a theater district, office buildings. We had a whole thing going on. But again, the problem with the metaverse is you can only hold about 300 people at a time with all the assets. It's bandwidth, right? It's the size of the funnel, and the browsers are only going to allow so much through at a time, and I can't control that.
Absolutely. This is something that people should get on board with. Great way to advertise and just speak with other people and just have fun.
And it's free,
So
we don't
yeah,
charge. People can come for free.
that's right. It's the booths that it costs the amount.
Right.
But you are able to just come in.
Yeah. And talk to everyone. Some people prefer not to have a booth because they're not weighed down by having a booth and stuck there, but you can't really show graphics otherwise. And we only let the exhibitors present in the presentation rooms.
Chris, you talked about the vision and you mentioned 50 licenses, each with 20 members, building a $10 million business and then selling. For someone who's been doing this for 16 years, what does that exit look like and what does it mean for you personally?
Well, first of all, I don't want to say it's a dream, it's a goal. And the difference between a dream and a goal is a date. There's a date on it where I want it to happen by, and I've got about 4 years left. Yeah, I feel that we are ready. We have done the work. We have built the platforms. We've written the books. I have everything in place where we're ripe for licensing. There should be on the bus coaches in all over the country, all over the world, because we have a system that works and entrepreneurs are hungry for a community like this. And you're not going to find it in groups that are just networking or just sales training or just anything. We kind of bring it all together. And again, it works. So my vision, yes, is to have 50 licensees, each with 20 members. And the hard part is finding everyone post-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, it was a little easier. You could network at chambers and places like that. But the post-pandemic, the chambers have gotten smaller. The smaller groups have gotten bigger. Everything now feels like a medium group. And they're all pushing to go live. And their focus is a gas tank's radius, where we're staying virtual and our focus is international. So there's a shift. So we're not for everyone. If you are a regional product, a restaurant, again, not to pick on restaurant, there's no reason why a restaurant would want to have a booth at our conference unless they want a franchise.
Chris, this has been a genuinely great conversation. The way you think about entrepreneurship, the honesty of it, the directness of it, I think that's exactly what people in this space need more of. For anyone who wants to learn more about On the Bus and what Chris is building, or who wants to attend one of these virtual shows, where's the best place to find you?
Our website would make the most sense, onthebus.biz. I've also written a book that I'm pretty proud of called The Entrepreneur's Big Book, featuring the 12 steps of entrepreneurship. And 10 of our members tell their stories in the book. what life and business was like before they got on the bus, what changes they made, and what life and business is like now, and the mistakes they made. That's not a bad book to listen to or read, and you'll get a feel for our community that way. But the website onthebus.biz, in theory, should have everything there. It's always evolving.
We will make sure that all of this is in the show notes, including the link to the upcoming show. Last question, and this is one I ask every guest. If you could give one piece of advice to a business owner who's earlier in their journey than you, someone building something and trying to figure out how to run it, what would that be?
Join a group, get involved in a mastermind group. You need a safe environment where you can go and say, I don't know. And it needs to be someone who you're not going to feel is an authority. So, not a spouse, not an accountant, not a banker, not a lawyer, not your bartender, not your golf buddies, but other entrepreneurs where there's a breadth of information and experience where some might be better at certain answers. Like if you look at Shark Tank, you got 5 or 6 different types of owners there of the sharks, they have different feedbacks. They have different expertise. That's kind of what you want, but you don't want to be the victim, putting yourself on the altar. You want to be one of the group and you want to be able to share and give because you also have information to share. You have information to share on how to promote a podcast or your AI business or all of that. That's feedback. So it's give and take.
Okay, perfect. Chris, thank you so much for coming today. So glad to have you and everything that you've shared.
Thank you, Ethan. This was fun. Thank you.